Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Dobson with LeaderShift. Heather Watson invited me on and asked if I would talk today about why it is that people are taking and thinking about leadership and leader development as part of their personal and professional development. And wondered if I could invite a couple of people who've been working with us through the National Farm Leadership Program and get their insights as to their motivations and how it's helped them. So I was more than happy to do that. So today I've got Tina Zakowsky and Derek Axten, who are just in the final month of their participation in this year's National Farm Leadership Program. And so, guys, thanks for doing this. And I just want to sort of start off with this. This has always been, and we just got off, we had a great call last night. And I wanted to just touch base with what I'm noticing. We've already done a number of intake interviews for the National Farm Leadership Program in 2022. And what I'm noticing is that there's starting to be, and I don't want to make up a story about this, but people are starting to get clear about the reason why they think working and focusing on themselves as a way to make their business successful is starting. I'm starting to hear more and more clarity around that as I talk to the people who are interested. So I have my own ideas on that. But being that we're wrapping up in the program, this might be a bit of a debrief for all that we've done with each other through the year. And so, and I'll start maybe with you, Tina. Can you tell me and tell the audience what was your ultimate decision about why you decided to take 11 months part-time and join the National Farm Leadership Program?
Well, I first learned about the program at the AgEx conference in 2018. And right away, it was the personal nature of the program that appealed to me. I've never heard of another leadership or management type of course that is built around each participant's specific challenges and opportunities and goals. And so it's been a few years that I've been thinking about doing it. And one of the things that I've learned in my 15 years of working in agriculture is that there's never a good time for anything. But last year at this time, I just decided it was time to take the plunge and apply and see what happened.
Okay. And so I'm just going to poke you a little bit more, if that's okay. Was there a particular motivation for you about what you were hoping to get out of it before you started?
I guess one of the things would be at the time that I first heard about the program, I was just over a year into a brand new position in my career with Canadian Angus. I've been working here for 15 years now. And in 2017, we did some internal restructuring and I was promoted to the leadership team. And I've actually never had any formal management trainings. So I was in this senior position that was newly created and I felt a little bit out of my elements. But I've kind of embraced that 4-H model of learning to do by doing without actually formally ever being part of 4-H. But at the same time, I was feeling like I wasn't as effective as I could be. In 2019, we had a change in senior leadership. So, we've been changing direction, doing new strategic planning, and I was just looking to get some direction to be more effective and to build on some of my weaknesses as well as to build on my strengths.
Okay. So life came up and it sounded like it was, you felt maybe a bit of gap between maybe what you're going to be asked of you and where you felt you were.
Life always comes up.
Yeah. Derek, how does that show up for you? What was your story?
Oh, well, I think it was 2019 in Fredericton when I first heard you at the conference, and it was just by chance. We chose your session. It looked like it was something that would fit, but I knew 10 minutes into here you talk about what's possible, and yeah, that I realized this is something I need to look into deeper, because I knew that I had a problem and I knew that there was room for improvement, but I didn't realize this is something that you can manage and get better at. So it was just a matter of then, having the opportunity to just be in this program. And yeah, I think you make time for what's important, and we did. So yeah, here we are. And I wanted I knew I wanted a better environment. I just didn't know how to get there. And
Right.
yeah, I think we're getting there.
So you're speaking more to culture and how things rolled every day in your farm.
Yeah. No, you've been to those farms and other operations that things just seem to happen and effortlessly.
Yeah.
And I wanted one of those, right? That's what we ultimately all want. And learning that we can work on this and make it better and get better, through practice was kind of exciting, actually, the fact that we can get there.
Well, I just have to jump in on that because that is something so I have two things I want to say about that, and hearing your experiences about, seeing an opportunity and challenge and realizing that maybe I don't feel like I'm as prepared as I could be and wanting to be better. Two things I want to say about that just feed into what you're saying. First, I think I've constantly encountered a sentiment in ag, and it's everywhere, that this isn't malleable, like this isn't trainable. And that basically that leadership is a binary, you either have it or you don't. And that ultimately people don't change. And I've been, and I've spoke about that, and I've taken those criticisms over the last couple of years. But what I'm starting to notice, so this makes me really optimistic, and I just want to get your idea about what you're noticing and how this lands for you. So I've done a half a dozen intake interviews for the National Farm Leadership Program for 2022. And the most common themed comment is this, so far the age range is probably like late 20s to mid 30s. And they're absolutely are connecting the notion that how well they show up determines how well their business will do. And the most common comment I've heard, and it's eerie, is I want to do it right. How's that line for you guys?
Yeah, I can identify with that very, very much. Yeah, it's evident here now, 11 months in that. Can
you tell me what that look? Can you put that and give me an example of when I look out through my window, or when the day starts? Can you just, maybe I'm poking if it's a little sensitive, but I think you're able. What's the difference? Can you describe the difference?
Yeah, what would be I definitely gained a pile of confidence, right? And clarity, I guess, is probably two of the things that really stand out for me, and just having the confidence, that knowing that our guys are showing up, wanting to help and wanting to contribute, and it's amazing what they'll do when you let them, right? So it's been really good. Kind of one of the big things we were having, because we've had a lot of growth in the last couple of years, and I knew that in order for this thing to be sustainable and have potential to grow more, is I'm going to have to be able to get away, and having the confidence to do that, was big, really big.
Tina, what are you noticing?
Absolutely. It totally makes a difference. It's not a lightning bolt. All of a sudden, everything changes in 1 minute. It's kind of like the seasons and the change of daylight hours, or like a weight loss journey, where it's lots of little things over time that add up. For me, one of the things that I didn't realize, I have a tendency to be a perfectionist, and to do it all, or to try and do it all. I knew the impact that it was having on myself in terms of my stress level and my work-life balance. And so over the last 11 months, I've learned how to not jump and be the first to volunteer and take things on, especially if I already have more than enough to do. And it does work itself out. If I don't do it, there is somebody else that can do it, and maybe they have more time than I do. And the next time something comes up, then I can take it on, because I have more ability in my schedule right now to be able to do it. So it helps. It definitely helps, but it is a slow process. It's a journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, I think one of the things we've talked about, we spend a lot of time together as we practice and we learn, is to be able to change our measuring tool about what actual growth looks like. And we've had, I know you're smiling because we've had a number of conversations on that, Tina, but to actually train ourselves to notice small improvements and to add and to have those stack up over time. And so all of a sudden there becomes a shift. And I think that's one of the other myths I think that I think we're starting to crack. And I want to believe that it's some of the positive experience that we're being able to generate for participants, that they're starting to realize this idea that small shifts can have big impacts. And that it's not that there has to be this whopping transformational change. It's if we can just shift a few things, suddenly things start to smooth out. And to your point, so and again, this is what I heard in different ways from each of you, and I just want to make sure I have this right. And I'm thinking more of you, Derek, because this is a theme that I think has run through a number of the cohorts, and it's run through some of the intake interviews I've been having for 2022, is that most people want a farm team where when there's a high level of partnership, where and we know, and you know what our definition is, that it's a partnership is where everybody feels responsible for the success of whatever we're doing together, and that they want a culture where everyone is seeing opportunities or challenges, and they're being proactive. They're taking initiative, even if they don't know what they're doing or they're not sure what it is. If they see something that looks not right, that they're willing to engage to do that. And secondly, if they're not there, like if the leaders aren't there, like if you're not in the office that day, or Derek, you're not there, that there is enough relationship and partnership that exists in that organization that when something comes up and there's no manual for it, there's no SOP for this, that they actually know you well enough to know, this is how we roll around here. This is what I think Derek would want me to do. And this is what I think Derek would have. I don't know how to do this, but I think I know that this is important and something needs to be done. And so I'm going to handle it to the best that I can. And then I'm going to reach out and make contact or do whatever. And when that happens, and when I've said that to the intake people, they're kind of eyes that are like, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Does that land for you guys the same way? See some heads nodding.
Absolutely. I think the more that you're able to empower the people around you and give them the confidence and the strength to act when those opportunities arise, whether those opportunities are positive or are negative challenges, I think the better everybody does. You know, it fosters that sense of teamwork and people helping each other.
Yeah, like when I was earlier talking about confidence, I mean, obviously in myself, but confidence in everyone here, and that's what's really been showing up. You know, there's a lot less second guessing and yeah, and the integration. I mean, that's because we've kind of got two separate, not enterprises, but sort of two things. And we have some that have to work both ways, and it just happens. Like it's happening right now. You know, normally, you know, it's the last nice day here before winter sets in, and normally I'd be out there having to point fingers, and it's just happening. So it's nice.
So Derek, before you took the plunge, did you think that was possible?
No, is the short answer. You do it knowing that what's going to go, you know, you'd always have, well, what's going to go wrong today, or what disaster is going to strike us this time. And yeah, it's definitely not in my mind as much.
I'm sure you've heard me say this 1,000 times, but part of what we do in this is helping people understand that a lot of the ways that that has got them successful, like the old Marshall Goldsmithism of what got you here won't get you there, that there's a certain way of showing up that has got you and got people successful. But as you get into increasing levels of responsibility and complexity and things get bigger, and there's no right or wrong answer. Sometimes it's a lot of judgment, a lot of working through it. We know where we're going. We're not sure exactly what that map looks like, but we're going to keep trying. That the ways that our previous way of doing that usually tends to be not very effective. And if it is, it's at extraordinary high costs. And so this fits into this idea of well-being and mental health, is that everybody knows they need to take time, but most of us sit and go, and how's that going to work? Because because we're all pinned on this high controlling perfectionism, autocratic, my way or the highway. There's only one way to do that. there's no way that, if left on the devices, that things are going to get done the way I need to do them. And I see the grins and the smile, and then to actually find out how that can be built, like structurally can be built step by step. That this is something that's not soft, but that we can design relationships, and we can design, and we basically build relationships with people that make that possible. And that amazing is so many employees want to do that. They want some autonomy. They want some flexibility. They love to be trusted. The vast majority, at least the ones you want to keep, they want to be put under a lane, like, hey, this matters what I do right now, and we're in this together. Yeah, so interesting. I think what was the other thing I was going to say? Can you tell me about the practices? Can you tell me about some of the things that you've had to do in order to make that happen for yourself? Because that's a big part of what we do. It's not just about knowledge. Like, it's not like I just gave you some information, or the program said, here, read this, you'll be great. There's been some things that the things that you've had to work on, because, like, as one of our mantras, nobody gets better at anything without practice. Can you give an idea of how the program's helped you practice differently?
Well, I think one of the big things for me was, like, early on when we did this self-assessments, and then had the others assess us. I think that was powerful, would be the word. It's one thing to assess yourself, but it's something else to have others that you work with assess you, and then to see that, and that gives you some fuel to do better, right? And I, and some of that was my family, and because like we said, right, there hasn't been a wrench thrown here in 11 months, I think. So, for lack of a better term,
right.
And learning where you fit on that, in the reactive, spectrum, maybe this isn't the right word, but and that was a big deal for me. And you're not the only one. Everybody has tendencies, and it's learning how do you work with that, and other people, how other people's reactive tendencies are. And now that I can see that, it's completely changed. Very powerful.
Tina, what was your?
I completely agree with Derek about the value of that peer assessment. It was extremely nerve-wracking. Not gonna lie, knowing that your peers, your colleagues, the people you supervise, your boss, they're all evaluating your skills and abilities. But for me, seeing the things that I was trying to do or doing that landed well, or maybe were having a greater impact than I was aware of, I actually pulled some quotes out of the assessment, and I printed them on a piece of paper. I keep a copy in my office at work and my office at home. And on a bad day, when I'm beating myself up about, not doing well, I pull that out to remind myself that, these are the things I'm doing well. This is how others see me. Another practice that you taught us early in the course, Kelly, that I like to pull out, maybe not every day, I should do it every day, but most days, is the before you go to bed nighttime practice, where every night you think of 3 things that went well and 1 thing that you're grateful for. And I've really found that as someone with chronic insomnia and somebody who has trouble sleeping at night and likes to overanalyze my day and, I should have said this and I should have done that, it really helps me sleep better. And I find I wake up more positive when I've done that the night before. And it's such a simple thing, so easy to do, but it makes such a huge difference.
I think that's an interesting point that you bring up, and there's so much I'd like to say, but I think the thread from the lands for me, Tina, is that so many of these, there's no, I know when I started on this process many years ago, I was really looking that there was going to be some sort of awesome sauce. There was going to be this thing that I could do or buy or have that would just make it better. Like that, there was just like, there's a problem. It's not really me. It's not, I'm the one that's not the problem. It's this whole thing that's not working. I need to get something that's going to, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to implement, and to realize over time, one, that there was a lot that I had way more agency and capacity to impact my life and what was going on in my business for positive results, but that I could do a lot, stack up these small behaviors over time and how they would actually they would add up to a much completely different experience and what goes on in my life and in my business every day. Thinking, Derek, about the feedback, I think you both talked about the assessment and the qualitative feedback. I think it's really interesting that you both cited that as being really, really impactful, because it's a lot of work to put through. Like, it's a big, it's a very comprehensive assessment. We do it, and if anything, we're actually focusing on it more. And just one of the comments I think that I hear about, and I think about this as from my perspective, is our challenge as coaches is to support clients to turn feedback that can be very personal and sometimes not, and it can be gut punching, but it also can be really insightful and very positive, but to convert that into data that says, what is this at? Just like we get a soil test or any market information. Here's some data. What is it telling me? What's it inviting me to step into to make small changes? And it actually, I think, for many of us, I think over time, and it takes time to process it, it starts giving a compass point, and that's where the practice comes in. It's like, if I were to actually really focus, I put some structure into what I could be working on, this gets very, very, very specific very quickly. And I think you mentioned that right at the beginning, Tina, is that as much as the first part, part of this is about just learning. And again, there's all sorts of books. And if we could just solve this by reading books, Amazon and Audible would have taken care of this problem long ago, particularly with all the podcasts now. But this is really about trying to, and that if there was an instant, if we could just take a book, and here, I'll just grab one and just stick it into my head and push it into my head, that it would be fine. I actually had tried that for myself quite a bit in my early days. I was actually read all the popular culture books on leadership and could cite and quote, but it didn't seem to have much of an impact. Like, it didn't actually change. I didn't actually show up very well. And so I just want to, think about and invite you to talk about, if you were to give any sort of advice or there's something through this conversation that we've had so far, and I think we're getting close to the end, I'd want to give you an opportunity to think about, if you could say one thing about the benefit of this to other people who might be thinking that it might be a fit, but maybe not. What might that be that you might say? Tina, would you like?
Sure. I think I would say exactly why I applied for this course and why I wanted to take it. This course starts where most other programs end. It's not just about telling you what the tools are and the things you could do better. It's the process of developing a plan to actually follow through. There's guidance, there's accountability, which is huge. You actually have to make a commitment and stick to it and follow through. And there's progress. We meet and we update each other. So you can't fake it. You have to commit to it. And it's scary, but it's also what sets this program apart and makes it so powerful. And maybe, like I said earlier, you don't have a lightning bolt moment, but there's those incremental small changes, and they do add up over time and make a huge difference.
And I just before I go to you, Derek, I think the part I want to emphasize is that so often, and this is a very common theme, is that if this idea of doing it on our own, what I've come to learn about all this is that we're not always very good at acknowledging the shift in difference. So that's part of the coaching offering, that and why it's unlimited after the program, is that it's not uncommon. It doesn't happen for every participant, but I'll often get I'll often get into a conversation, and this happens in every program, and someone will go, you know what, and I'll be like, how do you think things are going? What's working? What are you working on? How's it going? What are you going to do differently? And it leads off with a bunch of pessimism, going, well, I don't really know. Like, things are good, but I don't know. I just don't really feel like things are moving forward. And again, comes into the complaints. I don't want, don't have, don't like. I just don't really feel like things are as good as they could be. And what I've come to learn about all that is that often what people are noticing is a far less amount of anxiety in their life, like less tension that's going like struggle. And they're wondering, like, what am I missing? Or like, obviously things aren't moving if I don't feel like I'm struggling, because like trying to keep this all together is always struggle. And this feels eerily under control. obviously this is not something not right. And I always love those moments because you pull up their plan and you go, so let me just see if I heard you. Like, this is what she said 3 months ago or 6 months ago about what was going to be game changing for you. And because we get it down to like, what does an outcome look like? And how would you know if you were there? So often I found it so helpful to hold that up and go, this is what you said. This is what you thought was going to be game changing. How much of that is actually, achieved right now? And usually they get that silly look on their face, like kind of sheepish, going like, damn, like I think I'm about 80% or 90% there. And what they're experiencing is the reduction in tension in their life, which means oftentimes like, so we're ready to put it up again, or we're ready to set the bar just a little bit higher and what that might look like now that obviously you've got a practice that's working for you. And I love that because we can reset that in the air if people want to set that in. So I just wanted to capture that. Derek, what about you? What would you have to say?
Oh, I'm definitely going to echo Tina's thoughts about the process. And I, going into this, I didn't know what I was getting into, to be honest, and it was definitely a lot more talking about feelings than I was thinking it was going to be, but, and it was so good. I mean, I couldn't imagine it without the meetings, and especially how we did them so often to start with, and now we're kind of winding them back. The accountability is huge. Like the peer-to-peer experience, I don't know how else you could replace that, because some of the exercises and things we did to realize that you're not the only one that's like that, and that having other people's ideas, it's like any problem. The more ideas you have to solve a problem, better. And that's helped me tremendously. I'm not all sure what else to say. It's been really good. Probably the biggest disappointment is that I didn't do this a long time ago. But
we're getting more of that too. We're getting some of that too. We're hearing that more and more. But what I'm encouraged about that is that at least in this so far in the intakes, we're seeing probably a 5-year age drop for who is expressing interest, which I find very encouraging. Can you guys speak to this? And I think we've got just a little bit more time left. Can you speak to the idea of the fact that it's we've had people in the program, not in this program, but we've had programs as young as in their early 20s all the way to 60, and both men and women, and how that experience and how the fact that it's a very much a full group, whoever comes and expresses interest, we agree to put everyone together in different ways for results, and how that's been an experience for you, how that's landed. Tina? I
can jump in on that, sure.
All right.
I think it's been great. I like to hear other people's experiences. I'm a city girl. I did not grow up in agriculture. I just happened to really like cows, and managed to get this job with Canadian Angus 15 years ago. And I honestly couldn't imagine working in any other industry other than agriculture. The people here are fantastic and amazing, and it's so inspiring. Every time we meet, I listen to somebody's stories and their struggles, and I'm just like, wow, how did you get through that? How did you succeed? How did you persevere? And I love the way that we collaborate. Somebody brings an issue to the table, and a different perspective just sheds that little bit of light, and it helps us get through. But also, we're all struggling, and our struggles are not that different. Our settings might be different, but we all have our struggles, and we're really not that different at the end of the day.
Derek?
I think the diversity of the group, it gives it such good perspective, because when we learned about the reactive tendencies, I just assumed that everybody was wrench throwers, for lack of a better term, but you know what I mean. So to learn, that all these different reactive tendencies, and why, when, 2 years ago, when you yelled and threw your wrench and the other guy just walked away, why you didn't throw a wrench back, to learn how everyone is so different. That was, I guess, I don't know why I didn't know, but that was unbelievably eye-opening. That's an extreme case, right? This isn't, we don't throw a lot of wrenches here, but just trying to give some context of learning the diversity and having these conversations and the exercises we did with people when and how people react differently, I just thought was so eye-opening for me. They found it so helpful and insightful for our operation, and being able to talk to people long before it gets to that situation, but just to see the signs, you know, and understand what some of the, even just body language and those sort of things, that what they mean, and how to help yourself learn how to deal with these. And yeah, and personally, when you feel these things coming on, how to, you know, learn how to, you know, take some breaths and learn how to shut it down. That all of those things, you know, and hearing the other participants have the same experiences, that has been very helpful,
very normalizing. I'm curious to say that, because like 2021 was a challenge. We didn't get a chance to do a residency, and it was certainly challenging for me. And so my response to this is that I'm really glad that it's been positive for you, because working in those kinds of diverse groups, there's an enormous amount of value in that, because we're able, it's not just like we have one big blob group, but as we move forward, we have different kinds of breakouts, and depending on what people are experiencing and what we feel like people could benefit from, behind the scenes, we actually orchestrate who might be a good matchup this time, just to see what happens, and I think we're very transparent about that everything we do is an experiment. And so experiments are about seeing what happens, not about nailing it. And so that's a place where it's okay to come in and try things. And actually, when we were talking about admission requirements for 2022, one of the ones I've got written down, and I've been trying it out a couple of times, seems to work good, is I say one of the requirements is that you are required to learn, which means you are going to be expected to try things and be seen not being very successful at it. And that's an amazing, that sounds sort of like, for us, we like absolutely, but for so many people, they spend so much time not willing to be vulnerable enough to realize that they don't have it all figured out, and that there's a place you can come that has nothing to do with farm man, like has nothing to do with finance, and has nothing to do with specialized. It's strictly about human development and human performance, with a bunch of peers who all have something in common, which is typically something to do with agriculture. So I think that brings us to the end of our time. I just want to thank you guys for coming and really sharing, you know, what it's been like for you and your experience. Yeah, it's been great. It's been great I love doing this work, and it's been great working with you guys. And I just want to wish you all the best. I think we got one more meeting before we wrap up, and then we'll be staying in touch. I mean, we talked about potentially having an alumni residency in March coming up for people who've been in the program before, and I think we're gonna try that. So, because I think people really want to get back together again. So, thanks so much, guys.
Thanks for having us.
All right.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. Thanks for everything. It's been good.